So last month, how much did you make in commissions?
It was 51,000 I made all in all. I got to maybe like 6 months where I just haven't improved. But he was telling me like, hey, I work with this guy, Christian, like he's really, really good and whatnot, right?
When you first came and we started working together, like where were you at in terms of commissions?
I was around 25K commissions, 25 to 30K. Even now, like, of course, I've hit 51K last month, but I still know there's so much more for me to learn, right?
And then once you started actually like implementing these things, like having better conversations, like how did you notice things differently on your sales calls?
You know, the people that I was closing reach back out to me after like a couple months and say like thank you and stuff. I've never had that before in my life.
Yeah. Like we had to maybe drill it down to real actual things that maybe you're actually doing differently on your calls that you think was making the biggest difference.
Follow the process and then fail forward and fail hard. I'll probably lose a couple deals here and there, but at the same time, the long-term effect will be a lot better than just short-term sacrifices.
Just so everyone knows, so last month, how much did you make in commissions?
Yeah, last month was my highest commission month I've ever had. It was 51,000 I made all in all.
Okay, nice, bro. So we broke the 50K mark. So let's kind of go back and just like understand like, okay, how did we get here? Because when you first came and we started working together, like where were you at in terms of commissions?
Yeah, when I first came, I was probably around 25K commissions, 25 to 30K. And yeah, I think the biggest thing I was struggling with was I just kind of hit this plateau. You know, I think I was progressing in my sales career, you know, quite rapidly, if you want to call it that. But then I got to maybe like 6 months where I just haven't improved. And it's anytime I tried something new, it wouldn't work. But obviously I knew there was a lot more potential. I mean, it's obvious, right? I knew guys making like $1 million a year in sales, right? So if I'm over here doing 25, 30K per month, there's obviously something I don't know. So yeah, obviously I think the first thing I did was, you know, I think it's like when I first started in sales, I invested into myself, but obviously I wanted something a little more high level.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend who was in an offer that I was on before. I knew him for like 2 weeks because I was just joining the offer and he was leaving. But he was telling me like, hey, I work with this guy, Christian. I'm like he's really, really good and whatnot, right? So I didn't put too much thought into it. But I remember like probably 4 months after that, I was like, hey, I need sales training, right? I need some coaching. And I'm like, I remember this guy talked about this Christian dude. I'm like, okay, let me just check out who he is, because I followed you on Instagram just so that way, you know, if I ever wanted to, I could just go in and check. So I checked, and then I think the biggest thing you're saying is selling to identity, right? And I think that really resonated with me. The guy who I was on the offer with for 2 weeks, I didn't know him too much, but he was a really cool guy, and I trusted him. So I was like, listen, let me jump on the call. Let me see what it's all about. And then I'm the easiest sell in the world. So like, let me get into this. And that's what got me in.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, let's first talk about, because like, dude, I can't tell you how many people hit like 25, 30K per month. They're like, dude, I know everything there is to know about sales, right? It's like, dude, I'm the bee's knees. Like there's no higher level for me. Like, what do you feel like internally for you? Like, okay, like I still understand there's levels to this game.
It's, what do you call it? Like the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? It's the less you know, the less you don't know, and the more you know, the more you understand that you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, like even now, like of course I've hit 51K last month, but I still know there's so much more for me to learn, right? Because I've gone into this rabbit hole of sales for, you know, so long now that, you know, it's literally stupid for me to say that I've hit my limit, right? That I'm the bee's knees, right? Unless I can look around and objectively say I am the best person in the world at sales, then we can start thinking about, hey, you know, what's a route that we can go down to make more money. And then, to be honest, if you get to that stage, then you're probably within like your 80s or 90s and you're dead, right? Because mastery is so hard regardless of what you choose to get into, right? So I think, once again, there's almost nothing in this world that you can say you've mastered almost everything in regards to that skill set in anything in life. So
Yeah.
sales is no exception to that.
Yeah, that's what I say. Like for me, like sales and persuasion is such a deep rabbit hole. Like, dude, I'm still stuck in it. Right. Like
Brother.
it's something I'm still like
Yeah.
constantly like thinking about and obsessed with. And it's a beautiful thing because doing that, like obviously you can make the type of money you're wanting to be making. But I know for me, it's like helped me in like every aspect of my life too. Right.
Hmm.
But when you're at that point, okay, 25, 30, you hear about me, you're following me a little bit. Like, what did you see or what did you come across that you're like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like, let's at least roll the dice.
I think the biggest thing is everything was purposeful, right? I think a lot of
Mhm,
times I was saying things on calls. By all means, they were the right thing to do, but I wasn't
mhm,
understanding why I was saying this. I wasn't understanding,
mhm,
the underlying motivations, and I guess really tapping into the subconscious brain of, human
mhm,
behavior to understand, how can I actually help them throughout the decision making process, right? And not
mhm,
just go surface level with them. And I think that's something that you do very, very well. It's
mhm,
obviously learning it is in my opinion, is probably the exact thing I was struggling with at the 25-30K per month mark. Is
mhm.
I knew what to say. I knew why I was saying it, but the implementation was hard. I think for
Yeah.
you really broke down the implementation very easily, and it's very digestible, because I think
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about, especially when you go into like, hey, this is how humans think subconsciously, this is like their limiting beliefs that they've had, this is how you break them down.
Mhm.
Brother, it's like learning how to walk again. So it's so
Yeah.
hard to implement. So for you, I think once I came in, it was so much more digestible and so much more palatable for me to
Mhm.
actually go in and implement in my calls. Because you hear this from all these guys, this is how humans think, this is how humans work. But once again, I'm not like, okay, what's the next step? What do I do from here,
Yeah.
right? So
How do you
yeah,
implement?
exactly. Because they're talking about like CIA techniques on how to like read people and all that kind of stuff. And that's by
Mhm,
all means, I mean, if you get to a high level, I think that'll definitely help in persuasion and whatnot. But
mhm.
at the base level, you need an entry to kind of, get the ball rolling.
Yeah. 100%. And then once you started actually like implementing these things, like having better conversations, like how did you notice things differently on your sales calls?
I started having, the people that I was closing reach back out to me after like a couple months and say like thank you and stuff. I've never
Mhm.
had that before in my life.
Yeah.
Maybe once or twice, but that was like probably like an amazing call that I had, right? But it
Yeah.
wasn't a
Yeah.
consistent thing, right? So
Mhm.
really being able to, have incredibly candid conversations with people, because, once again, like these people have had these limiting beliefs and, these
Yeah.
problems for, a lifetime, right? And
Mhm.
it sounds crazy to think, but it's true. When you're on that call with some of these people, you're having one of the most candid conversations with them about their life than anyone has ever had in their
Yeah.
entire life, including their parents, their spouse, their brothers or sisters, everything, right? So once you're able to do that, right, it shows how much commitment that you have to them actually, building out, their dream life, right? So
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest thing. I was like, wow, like this is, I
Yeah.
was closing deals, but obviously, you close so many deals, you can't remember everyone. But
Yeah.
then, I'm getting these messages coming in on a weekly basis. I'm like, wow, like this is
Yeah.
this is incredible. So like, that's probably like the biggest um, like indicator that it was working. Mhm.
No, that's good,
Of
man.
course, of course, the close rate went up too, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, by all means, it's
Yeah.
I'm like, well, humans were emotional, right? I think seeing that was probably a bigger impact on me than just seeing numbers go up on a
Mhm.
screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like for you, like, what do you think would be like if we had to maybe drill it down to a couple like real actionable things that maybe you're actually doing differently on your calls that you think was
Hmm.
making the biggest difference?
Hmm. A couple things. I'd say this.
Mhm.
It's embracing the discomfort. I think, especially when you're implementing all these new skills, it's hard by all means, right? You're going to be
Mhm.
asking questions and getting reactions out of people initially that are not very conducive to success, and it's very
Yeah.
demotivating for you to keep going, right? So I'd say the biggest actionable steps, I'd say the most like
Mhm.
number one was follow the process
Yeah.
and then fail forward and fail hard. I know you say that all the time. So I
Yeah.
think just do that. I really, really mean it. I'll probably lose a couple deals here and there, but at the same time, the long term, effect will be a lot better than, just short term, sacrifice essentially. So just implementing, trying the new process. That's the number one thing I would say.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And I know right now, again, you don't have to say too much about like the offer you're selling on right now, but you're selling to much more sophisticated buyers, just in general, right?
Yeah.
With the skill sets that you've learned, how are those conversations really going? Especially like you're a younger dude. I know they're not going to be able to see your face. Now you have a bit of facial hair, so that helps. Okay, but you're a younger guy. You're talking to these older people, and more sophisticated buyers. So with the skill set you have, like how do those conversations go, and how do you feel like that's really helped you?
Yeah. I mean, personally, for me, I've never really seen my age as an obstacle, right? You might, especially funny enough, when you start speaking to more sophisticated buyers, I think a lot of times people get in their own heads that these guys are millionaires. These guys are like CEOs of 9-figure companies and whatnot, right? I promise you, they don't care. They really, really don't. You'll find broke people who you're selling $500 to saying, "Oh, are you too young to do this?" You'll find them say it's a lot more than the rich people. Rich people care a lot more about how you carry yourself. Are you actually an expert within this industry? Can I trust you? They care more about what comes out of your mouth and, once again, your skill set than anything else, right? So these conversations, you can, especially because I think a big problem that I had was speaking to very affluent people, right? So getting on an offer where almost everyone is very affluent and very successful in their careers, it was really tough initially, I guess, just mentally, right? But breaking it down, I think the conversations I have with them now are a lot more. They're a lot more open with me now. I think because especially with these people, a lot of people are afraid to ask them some questions about what the personal impact that growing the business is going to do for them, the consequences of not actually doing that. A lot of people, they kind of I don't want to say, they kind of just kiss ass for these people, right?
Yeah,
And
they
just
put them
whatever
on
they say to,
pedestals.
exactly, right? I challenge their beliefs. I'm pushing them to actually improve, right? I mean, you've done well, but why are you on, if you're not on this call because you're satisfied with where you're at? So the conversations are a lot more open. I remember before I was just having these conversations with affluent people and it wasn't going anywhere. You could just tell at the end of the call, it's like, I'm just crossing my fingers hoping that they're going to buy or
Hopefully
something,
he
right?
said the right thing.
Exactly, right? Now I don't treat them like any other person. It's like they're just another person to me, right? They have the same problems, the same solutions, the same, impact, the same everything that they're looking to actually produce, right? They just package it a little differently. It's just in a different manner, right? So yeah, if you're able to speak their language in that sense, not be afraid to challenge them, they respect that. They actually like that a lot because you're making them think, instead of just kissing ass. Like they probably get that every day from everyone. So
because I found it like super interesting because like when you're talking about people who are like actually like making good money, and I would always consider that like $1 million plus or so per year. Those people you can have a lot more straightforward conversations and they won't get offended versus somebody who makes 200,000 per year. Person makes 200,000 a year. Like, dude, the egos on these people,
brother. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's like this weird middle point where it's like you started making enough money that like those memes and stuff where people are like, after I make this much money, I'm like ditching all my homeboys and stuff like that. I feel there's like a certain income bracket and like a certain type of job where people start making that money and they feel like they are on top of the world.
Like they made it.
Yeah. Well, but once you go past that, I think that's the best prospects to sell to in the world. Like truly,
dude,
I'd probably say, from what I've seen, probably 500,000 plus. These guys, man, they're just so open, so genuine. They're not, once again, they didn't get to this point in their life by wasting their time or other people's time. It's just good to talk to them. That's if you have the skill set. If you don't, then it's going to be a nightmare.
You're able to carry yourself well.
And exactly, they're going to rip you apart because by all means, they're not going to waste their money on anything good. More than that, waste their time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, it's the same type of mentality where you get the closer who's making like 10 to 20 and they're like, dude, I know everything there is to know. It's like, bro, come on. But if you would have like one piece of advice, like, hey, maybe somebody who's like, they're stuck around like the 10 to 20K per month. like what would you say, like, hey, if you do this, that's going to help you break through the way that you're able to?
I mean, if you're at 10 to 20K per month, I would have a lot different advice than if you were like at like 5K per month, right? If you're at 10, 20K per month, you already have a foundation within sales, right? And I think it depends on your offer. If you're on a really, really shitty offer and you're making 10 to 20K, then you probably have the skill set to be making 30 to 40K if you're just on a better offer and you kind of tweak a couple of things, right? But say you're on a good offer, you're making 10 to 20K, like I was. I would say the biggest thing is just don't get comfortable. Like
Yeah.
have that hunger to get better every day. That's probably the biggest thing I would say. I know a lot of guys who hit KPIs, they do well, they're good closers by all means. Like the problem with them that's stopping them from getting to that other mark is they just get comfortable. They're just
Yeah.
like, hey, like I'm making 10 to 20K per month. I might be no one's really asking anything else of me because
Mhm.
I'm hitting KPIs and whatnot. It just don't get comfortable, man. It's like there's
Yeah.
once again, unless you're at the stage where you're closing over $1 million a year in commissions, then we can start talking about other routes, right? But there's still so much for you to grow. The same
Yeah.
mentality that you had when you were making 5K per month, trying to get to 10K, have the exact same looking to get to 50K. That's probably the best thing I would say. Comfort's gonna
Yeah.
kill you because you already know how to get better at sales. Just
Yeah.
continue doing that and don't let a
Yeah. There
number
just
on the
needs to be a
screen tell you
genuine
your value.
why, like to push
Exactly.
forward.
Exactly. And for some people, there might not be one. I mean, for some people, 10 to 20K per month is all they need in life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I really mean that. Your
Yeah.
life is going to be a lot easier, right? But if you want 50K per month, you can't just keep doing the same things that you're doing. You have to
Yeah.
start implementing, different skill sets.
Yeah, dude, 100%. Well, like, dude, great conversation. I
Thank
love
you.
seeing your journey, where you're hit to. I want to see you hit the next milestone. Maybe we'll chat when you get closer to the 100K per month again, right?
Yeah, I'll be here. I'll be here.
All right. Cool, cool, cool. We can end that there.